Tell me about your UFO experience in 1968 in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Well, in 1968, I was a much younger man at that time, and I was in my automobile, and I had taken a ride to a local park called Seaside Park, which has a large beach area. And at the time, I was supposed to meet a friend of mine who was a fisherman, and the striped bass had been biting at that time. And when I had arrived at the park, no one was there at that particular time, because usually the fishermen showed up at a later point in the morning, and I arrived very early. And if I remember correctly, the time was probably like around that just around daybreak, even if I wanted to say 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. And I was in my car, and I stepped out of the vehicle, and I looked at the water, and because Long Island Sound is directly across from Seaside Park, Port Jefferson, New York is what I am talking about. And I looked at the water, and I saw this, it looked like a large sphere, like a ball, cylinder type, whatever it was, if I wanted to say vehicle or whatever, some type of an airship or whatever it was, but it was a large ball shape, and it was actually resting on the water, approximately maybe 400 yards offshore. And I was kind of amazed because I had never seen anything like that. I thought possibly at the time maybe I know Sikorsky Aircraft is in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where they make helicopters, and I thought possibly maybe the U.S. Navy was doing some test work on some vehicle or whatnot. And I continued to look, and I did have a pair of binoculars in the car. I say, hey, let me get my binoculars. I ran to get my binoculars, and I focused in. I had a 10 by 50 binocular set, and I focused in on the object, and it appeared like figures that I could not describe. They were in some kind of some type of a uniform or some type of a camouflage uniform, and almost like a deep sea diver uniform. And they had some type of a hose in the water. It appeared to be like a hose. It looked like they were taking something out of the water or whatever they were doing. And all of a sudden, this thing just started to ascend. And lo and behold, I continued to look, and in a matter of a second or two, it was out of sight. It appeared like a little tiny circle in the sky, and I lost sight of it. I immediately, I didn't know what the heck I had seen at the time. You hear so much about UFOs, so-called unidentified flying objects. At that time, of course, we had no cell phones like today. Today, of course, you have cell phones. You're able to communicate. And at that time, we had no cell phone. And what I did was I drove home because my friend hadn't showed up. And I was so excited about it. I drove home, and I really didn't want to tell anybody, especially local police authorities, because I thought they'd think I was crazy at the time. So I went home and I told my wife about it, and she told me that I should report it. So I immediately, at that time called 911, and they put me in touch with the local Bridgeport Police Department. And, it's been so many years now that I really don't remember who I had spoken to, but the officer that I did talk to at the time, he kind of laughed and, facetiously, and was making sort of a joke about it. And I says, officer, I says, listen, I said, I'm not crazy. I really saw this so-called cylinder object, in the water. It looked like it had been taking something out of the water, and then it ascended until I couldn't see it anymore. I was looking at it with a pair of binoculars, and it looked like the people or whatever they appeared to be. They looked like people. They were dressed in some type of, it looked like deep sea outfits, and they were on board that craft. It just took off immediately, and in a blink of an eye, it was gone. And the officer said, well, you're not the first one to report seeing something. Somebody else called too and said they had seen it, so I guess you're right. But he was making it more like a joke. He really wasn't acting serious. So nothing was really done about it, and I looked in the local newspapers the next day, and there was a small article about some sightings in Bridgeport, but that was about it. Nothing ever became of it. But I experienced this, and hey, I'm 73 years old, and I know what I saw, and until this day, I swear that is what I saw. And this object moved so fast, it was faster than any jet, faster than anything that I have ever seen in my lifetime, and believe me,